28th meeting of the Directors of MSAD 27. Roll call.
Kelly.
Here.
Shannon Lugden.
Here.
Katie Lubasser.
Here.
David Susi.
Yep.
Tanya Wazin is not here. Toby Jandro.
Here.
Sarah Ashley will be here. Quinn Michaud.
Here.
And Madison will not be here.
Okay, there's some adjustments to the agenda, Ben?
Yeah, I put a new agenda on the top of your packet. Under approval of financial statements, we're going to add the September financials. Under new business, we're going to add a new item C, Friday dismissal. And then under new business, we're going to add a new item D, next meeting date.
Next week.
It's a period of public participation on items on this agenda. Do we have any folks who come in to participate on what we're discussing today? Seeing nobody, we'll move to the next step, approval of minutes. I get a motion to approve the minutes of meeting 927.
I'll approve the motion of minutes of 9:27 on September 11, 2023.
Need a
Second.
second. Katie seconds?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Pass. Approval of financial statements. Did you say you added another one to this?
Yep, we have August and September.
Want to take a moment to review September?
So Lucy's not here, but, and maybe this was explained and I missed the last meeting, so the regular instruction is like 5 million more.
Are you looking at,
I'm looking at September.
Yeah, just the jump from, that's what I was looking at, from
Ex-
August to September is significant, and it's double in August.
The expenses as well.
So if you look at the span, are we comparing to last year?
Well, it's the same period last year. Oh, it's not the same period though. Okay, that's, I was looking at the headings and not the dates. Thank you, Toby.
Yeah, I think it's column 2 and 3 that are comparable.
Okay.
I did the same thing in my head.
It's
okay.
I was like,
what's
whoa.
going on in this school?
Whoa.
Do I really want to bring this up?
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, no, that's what it is. I was looking at the title, at the headings and not the dates. That makes much more sense.
I did the same exact thing.
Yeah,
So,
you can figure it out on your own.
I'll entertain a motion to approve these two financial statements.
So moved.
I'll second.
And any discussion?
I'm still questioning though, like the same period last year and the expenses year to date
That went up, that's what I was.
for August and September. They're both, that's, I guess I'm not understanding like the huge jump.
654,000, so.
is there a specific line?
Oh, sorry, the regular instruction, to begin with.
Yeah, so under regular instruction, you would have, your salary increases for your teachers. That would be one part of it. You would also have your increases in health insurance. So those are just two big ticket items that would move that north from one year to the other based on whatever was agreed upon in the bargaining agreements. I think what's key is that we're nearing the quarter of the year, the first quarter of the year, so when you're looking at your percent remaining, you want to make sure that those percentages kind of follow suit where we are in the period of the year based on what Lucy built in for the budget. Obviously, with your lines, you're going to have more budgeted year after year because the expenses do go up. Without having Lucy here to explain in finite detail what that all means, that's the best explanation I can give, Giselle, unless you have anything that you can add.
I just want to make sure I understand your question, Katie, because I don't think you guys are on the same page. What was your question?
Well, no, I'm seeing what he's saying. It's just like the same period last year. And then expenses year to date.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not comparing the right columns, but it's like, it's a significant increase. It's
So-
double.
Yeah, it's about $40,000 difference.
No, I'm looking at 371 and 654 in August.
Oh,
Sorry.
No,
But I mean, it's comparable to, I guess, in September, because it's 379 to 1 mil.
yeah, 371, and last year 371, 397 this year.
Mhm.
So about, a $20,000 increase from last year to this year. Is that what you're?
So these two are telling the same story.
Yep, I'm looking at this jump. Like why?
This is year to date,
Mhm.
so this would be close to double this because it's 2 months. Right, so this is all of July and August, and this is just August.
So that first column is what we budgeted. So I'm just looking at
Yeah.
regular instruction,
Yeah.
5,494,000. Same period last year, we spent 371,000. This time, 397,000.
Okay,
So far this year, we've spent 654,000.
okay.
And
From-
then
from those dates.
we see what the amount remaining is as 4,816,000.
Right,
Okay, all right.
is that,
Yep, I'm understanding. But it still just looks
Me,
terrible.
Yeah,
me,
it
it's
looked-
the
it
year
looked
to
bad,
date
yeah.
for the 600 to the 1 million.
And then, yeah, the jump from 654 to the 1 million from,
Was this all in the budget that was approved not that long ago?
Okay,
so the expenses year to date.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
all right. So if we're looking at now September,
Mm-hmm.
so this month, September, 422,000. So if you look back at the expenses year to date
Mhm.
from August was 654. When you add that 422, it brings you to 1,477,000.
Got it.
Again, we still have 80% of that line remaining,
Yeah.
and we're about 20 to 25% done the year. So
Okay.
that's what's in line. Now, if you'd see a remaining percent, that's 50%, and we'd be at the beginning of the year. Those are like questions, and Lucy might tell you it's because we upfront pay certain things.
Sure.
And that happens sometimes.
Sure, all right, thank you for that
You're welcome.
clarification.
any other questions?
Lucy can never miss another meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? No oppositions? Unanimous. Presentations.
We have with us Monsieur Robert Deg. Every year, this time of the year, he comes to speak with you briefly about his French exchange program and get approval from the board. Monsieur Deg, merci beaucoup.
Hello, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Robert Daigle. I've been teaching here 15 years now. And 5 years into my position, I started the French exchange with Cholet, France. So we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. Quinn, our student representative, actually helped with the exchange last fall, and he's participating this year. He'll be hosting a young lady from France, starting Saturday, well, Sunday technically. And so she'll stay with him for 12 days. And it's a reciprocal exchange, so we host for 12 days on our end, and then we travel to France and the students, it's not really a touristic thing, it's really experiencing the culture at the family level, getting linguistic immersion. We offer the students who are doing the exchange are also in a dual enrollment college class, and it's not many colleges that can offer a 10-day immersion experience as in the course of their class, but our high school can because of this exchange. So I really appreciate your continued support. I can field questions if you have some.
What are the exchange dates, Mr. Day, for both parties?
So they arrive this Saturday, November 4th, and they will leave on November 16th. We are leaving, you put me on the spot, April 11, and we return, I want to say April 25. This because occasionally we're able to travel during our April vacation when the planets align so that they're not on vacation when we are, and that happens this year. And so the students who are traveling have requested 2 days in Paris so they can have a day to visit museums. They want to see the Louvre and they would like to see the Musée d'Orsay. So we're going to be able to do that this year. The exchange, usually I am out of my classroom for 8.5 days. This year it's only going to be 4.5 because of the April vacation. But I really appreciate your continued support of this amazing learning opportunity for our students.
Is there a cost associated to the student for the exchange to go over?
Yes, so this year it's $1,500. Last year it was $1,200. I get sponsorship to try to, decrease the cost for some of the things. I also put in my teacher budget every year for one of the bus trips to the airport, because we have 2 trips that we have to pay for. So the students pay for one, and you guys, in approving my budget yearly, have been approving that one of those bus trips to keep the cost down for the students. It's $1,500 out of pocket, but that doesn't count all of the expenses they incur while they're hosting. Their extra food, extra activities, hot water, like there's a lot of expense for the family while they're hosting. So all told, the exchange probably costs the families over $2,000 when you add it all up. But, it's well worth it, and I appreciate your continued support of it.
Any other questions?
Any scholarship programs available, or might it be worthwhile to explore developing funds in support of families who are good candidates to do this, but just can't swing it?
I have received funding in the past for students who were in need. So like I do have organizations that support us, and that I could, l'Association Française, I'm a member of that, and so if ever a need arose, I know that they would support me. Last year they paid for my trip, so I didn't have to do any fundraising for it. For 5 years I paid for the trip out of my pocket. And so I believe that l'Association Française will supply me funding. So that means, like, if I do fundraising and if there were a student in need, I would be able to divert the fundraising monies to that student. So, but so far so good. Every student has been okay with the amount. My trip ends up costing less than other trips that we offer, simply because of the exchange element. So they don't have to pay for food, they don't have to pay for housing. And so we can come under budget on, some other trips that may be going for 5 days elsewhere, but because they have to pay for housing and they have to pay for food, it might cost $2,000 for that trip, or $3,000. So it's still one of the least expensive trips that our school offers to students.
Does Madawaska have a similar program?
They do not. I'm not opposed to the idea of getting them involved. They simply have not gotten on board at the current time. We have a hard time sometimes supplying the need of our hosts, our partner school. They're a school of about 1,000 students in 3 grades. And we're 250 with 4 grades. So, sometimes we can't meet their demand, but hey, our exchange survived COVID, so we can survive. Like it's a solidly established exchange, and all I can say is thank you for your ongoing support.
How many students do you have going or
Going.
participating in this exchange?
So we have limited it at 12 students coming, 12 students going. Sometimes they would love to have more than 12 students to come, but in a school our size, 12 is a manageable amount. This year, for instance, all 12 students doing the exchange are in period 3 English with Mr. Chouinard, and one of the things they're supposed to do is like sit in on the classes, but we have to come be creative this year because obviously there's already 22 students in the class. We can't add 12 more, so we'll send like a few at a time to observe the English class. And one of the richness of the exchange is all of the French students, while they're here, we have them interact with all of our French students in the high school classes. So we organize just like conversational activities. They have a living, breathing textbook in front of them, and so we just give them the opportunity. Last year it was 2 classes, and because last year was the first time that all the high school students had year-round French, it was the first time that we were able to have all high school students interact with the French exchange students. It was a wonderful richness, so thank you for changing our schedule to that. It really benefits all the learners. I have a meeting I have to go to at 6. I'm really sorry, but
I was watching the time for you.
I'm on the committee for, Maine is applying to be in the Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, so that's like the international organization of French-speaking countries. Louisiana has status as an observer, and the St. John Valley is the most French-speaking area in the United States, and it just makes sense that Maine would also get that observer status. So we're in the process of trying to pull that off for everybody. So
Great.
continue to support French in the St. John Valley, please. It is a wealth, it is a resource not to be, done away with, but to be nurtured. So please continue to support French in our region. On that, I have to run, really.
I'll make a motion to approve the French exchange for 23-24.
Thank you so much.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. All right, Superintendent.
I just have a few items. The first one is our early enrollment snapshot. October is data month. October actually is everything month with the DOE, and somebody's going to have a talk with the commissioner about kind of spreading the wealth, because everything is due in October. And I actually told AnnMarie not to come to tonight's meeting because she's been putting in long hours on some of these reports on the technology side of things. So it's quite a bit. But the biggest enrollment figures are going to be your staff and your student enrollment. So this time of year, I like to share with you what things look like with regards to the student enrollments. It's not official until it's official, so I am comparing the official October count last year with what our current count is unofficial, but usually it's within a few students. You can see that we have brought in 57 pre-K students this year. It's the first time since I am superintendent that we enrolled more pre-K than we graduated the year before. So we graduated 56 and enrolled 57. So that's good for sustainability for the enrollments, and our overall count is just a net change of 5. We have, it looks like we're going to have 5 less students than the year before. I don't know if those of you remember, some of you might remember when we had done a comprehensive enrollment study when we were looking at Valley Unified, the study had shown greater decreases than we're seeing. So our decreases have not followed those trends that were analyzed some 5 years ago, which is good. And this is another example of that. I do believe that our full-day pre-K did entice some people who may have otherwise not sent their children to pre-K. So that's a factor there. Plus, we have the cooperative classroom cap, which can accept, you know, some more full-day classroom students, and that's going to help. I also like to share with you our homeschool count. It decreases slightly every year, so another decrease of homeschoolers. We did see that hike in COVID year, but every year since then has been decreasing. Our outgoing superintendent's agreements remain at 20, and that's, for those of you who don't know what a superintendent agreement is, Maine has a state law that says a student will go to school in the community they reside in. So our students that live in SAD 27 by law have to come to school in SAD 27 unless there's a superintendent's agreement, which means that the parents request to go to a different district, and I need to work out with the other superintendent whether or not that's advantageous for the student or not. The tricky thing about these is most of these 20 are superintendent's agreements between Frenchville, Madawaska, and here. So I'm making an agreement with myself, which I sought guidance from the commissioner about 4 years ago. How do I do that? And the advice was to bring in my administrators and have them help me make that determination. So we are always looking at it as an admin team between the schools and making sure that we're doing that. Superintendent's agreements are not accepted for things like athletics. So if somebody says, I want to go play soccer in Fort Kent, or I want to go play soccer in Madawaska, it's not accepted for those reasons. It has to be an academic benefit. There has to be a programming that's not available at their school. Most of them are because of bullying reasons or perceived bullying reasons where peer grouping is not advantageous to the students. So we try to work with the other school. Incoming superintendent's agreements, we have 4 this year coming from SAD 33. So that's what our that's what our enrollment looks like, and I'll answer any questions that the board might have.
What's the count, are you able to share, of the 20? Are all of them at one of the other Valley Unified schools?
We have 2 that are going to Caribou, and that's because we believe the family bought a home sight unseen, and I believe they thought they were going to Fort Fairfield. They ended up coming to Fort Kent, and we're really interested in programming at the Caribou CTE Center with drafting and that type of program we don't have here. So that's why we accepted that one. I believe we have one going to New Sweden because a mom works there, so they're bringing their child. 3, and I think the rest are the majority are 33. And a couple in one or 2 in Madawaska. And usually, like there's a family of 6 that's in there. They live on North Pearly Brook. They live right close to Frenchville, so like it's closer for them to go there. So there's those as well that do occur. Any questions? The second thing I have, I just wanted to share with you that we did have a Teachers on the Allagash Learning Experience 2023 that happened during harvest break, and this is in partnership with the Allagash Wilderness Waterway Foundation, who is searching for ways to get kids hooked onto our precious gem, which is the Allagash Waterway. And they felt a couple years ago that the best way to do this was to really get teachers and school personnel on board with what that could look like. So last year was their first year of the total experience. I was unable to go last year, but I did attend this year. It was simply amazing. It's just a quick trip. We got off at Henderson Bridge, went to Round Pond, slept the night at Round Pond. during that afternoon, hiked up to the fire tower and got to see the amazing foliage right at its peak. And then the following day, woke up and we headed down the Allagash River and ended up at the farm, and it was just an amazing experience. We had quite a few staff members that attended. Kurt Harvey, Danielle Reardon, Marie Roy, Can Netto, and Lisa Voisin, all from this district. And it generated a lot of conversations around how we can start to use an experience like that to sprinkle some outdoor experiences for our students across the grade levels. It's also part of what we talked about in our strategic learning objectives to do that. So we started having conversations, and we're going to meet together as a small group of those of us who went and begin talking about, okay, what are we doing across the grade levels? Okay, pre-K, we go apple picking, and kindergarten, we go potato picking. I'm just giving examples. So how can we build that across the grade levels? And not only that, but how can we scale it bigger and bigger? We have the DeBully experience in in middle school, which is amazing, and that's a great benchmark. So how can we build up to that experience? Then what can we do on the other end for junior or senior year to maybe get students on the Allagash? So more discussion with that, and I just wanted to share with you that was amazing, and I believe the experience will continue next year.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
How many students did you have involved in this Allagash?
This was not for students, it was
Okay,
just for
adults.
staff. Yep.
And then you had mentioned the apple picking for pre-Kers. Not all the pre-Kers got to attend that.
Right.
Did
just-
anyone else have any feedback on that?
No, and I was just
only-
using that as an example, because
Okay.
we do have a lot of teachers who do things in isolation. And what we
Okay.
want to do is try to make things more uniform.
Yeah,
So I
they're
know like
all-
Miss Tamar Philbrook's class does a wonderful experience with going to the greenhouse and planting flowers and then bringing that to the community. How can we, make that maybe a third grade project, versus one teacher or another? And that's going to be our goal, to try to make it kind of uniform across the grade levels. So all the kiddos are going apple picking.
Mhm. Well, I know just not all the pre-Kers went or
Right.
got the opportunity for
Yeah.
that, so that's why, when you mentioned that, I'm like, oh, well.
I believe it was just a full day pre-Kers.
Yeah.
I think so.
So I just didn't know if that was something else that other parents had mentioned or thought of, like, oh, how come the half-days didn't get to attend that or not? So-
Right. I haven't had any
imagine.
feedback. I can check with Mr. Netto if he has, but that is the goal, to try to make things uniform across the grade levels.
So when you all start talking about how to make it this way,
Yeah.
the conversation we're having at UMFK too
Awesome.
is utilizing, especially our vicinity of the North Main Woods, and just how close we are and everything we can do.
Yeah.
So, like, keep that in mind, and maybe
Awesome.
there's some, but like with the French, it's the early college. I don't know, but just to
Yeah.
throw that out there, we're moving in the same direction.
That's great.
And
Awesome.
we're close, so let's do it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to build on that, the university has Camp Violet, located just next to Anderson Bridge. You may not have seen it, but it's a fairly new facility. It's hardly being used, if at all. But it would be a great way to actually integrate some learning into that, both classrooms and places for people to meet. It's really a pretty sophisticated place that's not being used right now.
Well, yeah, we've changed the use of it some in the last couple of years, and they've done a lot of work up there. So
Yeah.
we should definitely talk.
Awesome. Oh, that's
And we
very
just
exciting.
got, somebody wrote a grant for it. This is UMFK, not for Kent, but like we have, I don't know, a dozen kayaks, a dozen backpacking, all of this equipment that was just, they received grants for,
Awesome.
that is not just limited to student use.
Because that was one of our, our hang up is, we can provide the opportunity, but, having, the access to the equipment and all of that sometimes is holding people back, especially families, where, you're not gonna go out to LL Bean, everyone, and just buy, 5-6 kayaks in a whim. So if we can partner and do something, absolutely, it's a great
Yeah.
conversation.
We have the equipment.
Awesome.
We can make that work.
Good.
It's also worth noting that the St. John River from St. Francis or St. John to Port Kent is remarkable.
Hmm.
When you get on the river, how close to a wilderness it is.
Yeah.
As is the Fish River. And these are in our backyards,
Yeah.
readily accessible.
And we do a lot, we do a lot of isolated things. Our seniors every year, they get on the river, they either go down the St. John or the Fish River. And, how can we make this part of our, curriculum so that all kids are getting that access at some point throughout the grade levels. I think that would be an amazing accomplishment. Any other questions about that? Just wanted to let you know that Tangled Web of Student Discipline workshop was put on by Drummond and Woodson. Mr. Doucetteii and I participated in that, and it's certainly a tangled web. I gave you all the table of contents so you can see the topics that were covered. You know, when you're talking about laws in Maine now that that protect staff members from being injured by students, so we have a dangerous student law now that, you know, ensures that if our staff members are injured by a dangerous student, they are compensated in time. And it doesn't go against their sick time or their earned paid leave time. That's in place in Maine. We have laws that do not allow our elementary administrators from suspending children under grade 5 or grade 5 and under, or removing recess. These are all making things very challenging when you think about traditional disciplinary measures, which is why our schools, Fort Cal Elementary, for example, is moving to positive interventions and supports. We need to use those positive interventions, those teaching moments, so that we're teaching students how to behave and doing so in a way that's supportive and not punitive. When you're trying to balance all of that, it's very tricky indeed. So we received the workshop guide, which has access to all these laws and these topics, and it's been nice to have that information coming right from Drummond and Woodson, and it came at a good time at the start of the school year, so that we are aware of what our parameters are with regards to that.
Do they provide guidance as to like what you are able to do?
They do, and their guide, I mean, and I'm looking at it right here, so I keep looking at my, like, it does have like a lot of do's and don'ts, like you have, so they have flow charts, like, so if it's a special ed student, how many days can you suspend?
Yeah.
If you suspend more than 10 days, they need a manifestation determination meeting, so there's some good tools for us to use so that we're not doing something that we're not supposed to.
Well, right, yeah, I would hate to see us do away with discipline altogether because of, because there's gotta be a level, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we can't just
It becomes challenging.
put our teachers in danger, you know what I mean, all
Right.
the time.
Right.
There's gotta be something.
It becomes a challenge, and always the best procedure, and our administrators do a wonderful job, is working with those families,
Yeah.
working with, and if my child's misbehaving at home, probably misbehaving at school as well, right? Unless you have those child that don't, you go to teacher conference and your child's doing wonderful, really. But opening up that conversation early with the parents, we always tell our administrators, our teachers, don't let the administrator be the person to call home, because if you as a teacher haven't had that conversation with the parents long before the administrator gets involved, you're not doing any justice to our administrators,
Right.
who have to be the bad guy, So,
Okay.
a lot of those conversations and encouraging our staff to keep those lines of communication wide open, because it's important that we do that.
Yeah, okay.
Department of Education updates, I don't really have a whole lot to update you on, other than last week's nightmare turned out to, the DOE turned out to respond quite quickly with that, making some changes. Like Toby, I was in Augusta, in the vicinity, and everything kind of went on halt. So we had conferences all set for Thursday. Half of those were canceled, and so it was kind of a frenzy. But the DOE did push out some guidance to schools, which we pushed out to our guidance counselors and social workers about how to talk to kids about, what they're hearing, or what they might be hearing if they are hearing anything and want to talk about it. And so we felt that we were served well by the department on that end, and they continue to offer some support services. I know that the Lewiston School Department is reaching out to all school districts across the state, saying, hey, if you can send counselors our way, we'll take counselors for the next day. So we're going to open that up to our counselors if they want to go help in that effort. We'll offer that. That just came out today, so we'll push that out. It becomes very real when the state of Maine now is another state to undergo something like this. I will share with you all that a very, very close friend of mine was one of the injured individuals, and so for me it's been a very personal thing. He's fine, he's out of surgery, he will make it, but it really, puts things close to home when it's right in your backyard. So we'll continue to support one another and hope that this does not become the norm. That's all I have for you. You have also your administrator reports if you want to ask one of the administrators who is here tonight.
Anybody have any questions for the administrators who are present and have presented, have given us some reports? All right, seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the next. The committee reports?
Policy committee. So we've got a lot of policies to talk about. There are some policies we're recommending for removal, some policies we're recommending for review, and some are first read. Now, I'm noticing in my agenda, are you guys missing a page 2 in your agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. It's, no, the actual agenda is missing, so we'll go off the superintendent's notes. It'll be more helpful than the actual agenda. So the first section of policies that we'd like to talk about are the recommended policy removals. When we met, Lucy helped kind of guide us through this as our business manager to talk about, what are some policies that we should keep in place and what are some that no longer make sense. So the first ones that we're recommending for removal are DA, that is your fiscal management goals. It's not a required policy. It's not listed in the Maine School Management Policy Database. And it just doesn't say a whole lot that needs to be said in policy. So that is the first one recommended for removal. The second one is DBD, determination of budget priorities. Again, not required, not listed in the policy database, and that is a recommended removal policy. DHA, authorization to commit district funds for special education. That's law. I mean, we have to commit funds for special education, so that is a recommended removal. DJGA, sales calls and demonstrations. We're not allowing any salesman to come sell encyclopedias to us.
It's been an interesting day in '76, huh?
So that's a recommended removal.
So Tupperware? I got a Tupperware.
Would you like to buy a vacuum? EBAAA-R, Bloodborne Pathogens Exposure Control Plan. That's actually something that OSHA puts out, so we don't need a policy for that. So that's recommended removal as well. And then the last one is JRA-R, examples of parent communication. Half of those things do not exist anymore in education. So, and that's going to continue to evolve over time. So again, that's not a required policy, and it is recommended removal.
I move the removal of all those policies.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Review policies are policies that we're not recommending any changes, to leave as is. BHCA, procedures for accessing information. That was last adopted in 2000, but it still remains good. DEC, revenues from other sources, 2005 policy, that's still good. DK, payment procedures, 2000 policy, that's still good. And DM, cash in school buildings, although we see less and less of it, it's still a good policy. So we're recommending just the review of those policies.
Payment procedures, it says not a required policy, not listed in MSMA policy.
Yeah,
database.
and we decided,
Recommending-
so this was from I was recommending that to the policy committee, and the policy committee said, no, let's just keep it, because it's pretty good stuff.
Got it.
So it's actually something we're gonna recommend just for review. Leave it in there.
Sure.
You get a motion to approve the review of these policies?
So moved.
Shannon?
Second.
Katie? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
That was one abstention.
One abstention.
We have a whole list of first read revised policies. And again, these are just for you to review. We went through them as a policy committee, and you can see some of these are total rewrites. DB crossed out what we currently have, and you can see the new recommended language from main school management. DBG, budget adoption process, that would be a code change, it'd be a title change, and it would be a rewrite of the current policy, and it just makes things work more according to the fiscal year, identifying June 30 to July 1st as that year, or July 1st to June 30th. Fiscal accounting and reporting, striking what we currently have and adopting what main school management is recommending. Inventories, DID, same thing. Removing what we have and adopting what main school management has. DIDA is actually just a code change, so that would be a very minimal change, just getting rid of the DID-R and changing it to DIDA. Audits, Lucy loved the code on audits, DIE. And it's a total rewrite of the audits policy. DJ, you can see some edits to what we currently have in law. This is not a very old policy, but I think the COVID funds changed some handling of these. So you can see some changing in the headings, and you can also see some language changes as well in that one. The next one is the procurement manual. I made it really small, so it wouldn't be 20 pages for us. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's just we've never adopted this as the board, and this is the federal procurement manual. And it's recommended that the board adopt it formally. We just never have adopted it, although we've been referencing it. So that's there as well. DJH, purchasing and contracting, procurement code of conduct. See some very, very small changes in the legal reference in that one. It was missing a legal reference. DKC, expense reimbursements. We just wanted to follow the current practice. So right now, our policy says the superintendent gives approval. It's actually the immediate supervisor who initially approves that, and as long as they provide a detailed itemized receipt. So just small changes in that one. DN, school properties disposal procedure. We noticed there was a line under A that was not necessary. It was citing other school units. So for us, we don't need all that language there. So that's we're striking that out. GBCC, and that is the employee use of cell phones. And the only thing that we are doing there, I don't see the color change. I don't have the markup. Under school bus drivers, we had put in a line saying that basically we will be following the law. Hold on. You have it. Oh, okay. Oh, if you see the notes page that we have provided you, we added under A, based upon need and availability, and then under B, school-owned cell phones and other electronic communication devices are to be used for school-related business purposes and are not intended for personal use except for emergencies involving employee health or safety. Employees have no expectation of privacy. The use of school unit-owned cell phones, electronic communication devices, or the information stored on them. And then the last paragraph on C would include reference to Maine laws with regards to cell phones while driving. What I can do is bring this back as a first read next time so that you can see those changes. Because you did not get the markup copy. GBEBB, which is staff conduct with students. Very small changes on the first page, but then you see some more changes on the following pages. With that, bloodborne pathogens is a code change. It should be GBGAA and not the EBAAA, so that's just a code change. Employee technology and internet use. It does update some new technologies such as iPads and tablets, and then it also has some changes in the middle paragraph and the third paragraph as well. GCSA-R is pretty much a rewrite of the opening paragraph, and then it goes into some changes of consequences and acceptable use for employee use of technology and internet for that one. Employee use of social media networking, it's only a code change for that. We recently adopted that in 2021, so it's still good, just needs a new code. And then EMAA, chemical hazards, it's going to be a totally different one, so I did attach the current policy, and I also attached the proposed policy. It's totally different in structure from the current to the proposed. Same thing with ECB, the pest management in schools and facilities. You can see the current policy and then the proposed one that's attached to that. Total rewrite of that one. IMG animals in school. The new policy does a really good job at outlining the process to gain approval and also notify families of animals in school so that if there's an allergy or a sensitivity, the families are aware, hey, we're bringing in Lucky, the 200-pound golden retriever on Thursday, and if your child is super allergic, you should notify us. So that doesn't exist in current policy, and it will with this revision. And then that is it for the revised policies. That's first read. Go home and study. It's riveting stuff, and if you notice anything, please let us know. The only new policy that we're proposing as a first read, it's actually been brought to you before, and it was kicked back to committee, and it is the board relationships and communications with staff. We felt as a policy committee, we wanted to make the policy inviting on a level where staff feel comfortable going to board members for general things, but not necessarily for things that need to be followed in the chain of command. So we added that second paragraph to the opening statement. The board encourages and welcomes informal conversations with all staff regarding the state of education in the district. However, in the event that staff want to discuss matters that require action or desired outcome, the following relationships are established to ensure the appropriate chain of command is followed. And so then it goes into, the relationship of the board and the superintendent, the board and the principal, the board and teachers and other employees. And we did also add some information under there. Teachers and other school employees who have gone through the appropriate steps in the chain of command and continue to have unresolved issues may reach out to board members to seek guidance, at which time the superintendent will be notified and appropriate steps will be taken to resolve the matter according to district policies and procedures. So I'm a teacher. I've gone to my my dean of students, my principal. It's been a month. Nothing's happened. I let the superintendent know. He hasn't done anything. Totally appropriate for a staff member to now reach out to one of you and say, hey, can you nudge the superintendent because I've got this issue and nothing's happening. So I hope that would open a dialogue between you and I where we would discuss that and then get moving on that. Did I cover pretty much everything?
I think so.
And we're kind of hoping that, I think what the problem with the previous version of this, it didn't open up any avenues for staff to talk to board members. It kind of said, hey, don't do that. Whereas our revisions are saying, totally appropriate to have informal conversations, totally appropriate to reach out to one of you if you're not getting answers from those people who are supposed to be giving you answers, so that you can nudge the powers that be to get that done. First read as well, so add that to your homework list. No action necessary on those revised and new policy.
What resources are referenced when we're changing the verbiage and doing all that? Because like I see a lot of repetitiveness, but then like certain things taken out where I'm like, why would you take that out? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the best way I can explain is, so we have Maine School Management who represents us, and something had to have happened with a legal dispute somewhere in the state of Maine where everybody had the same policy and they said, well, that language isn't going to work anymore. So they kick it out to legal counsel, they rewrite the policy to protect against whatever that thing was, and everybody is recommended to update those policies. One that we see regularly is like your Title IX sexual harassment discrimination one.
Yep.
That one changes almost every year because something changes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's mostly coming from legal counsel. I mean,
There's basically one law firm in the entire state,
Yeah.
and they just make money doing
Well-
policies.
So I mean, I guess in theory, if the law firm is writing these policies, why don't they write the policy and send it to I guess like that's my mindset instead of us critiquing and taking certain words out because I'm not a lawyer, but like I'm just gonna, I saw one and I think it was where the board can request an audit. And then the audit needed to be presented to the board. And then in the new verbiage, it's that verbiage is taken out. So it's just, we can, hold on.
Yeah, I remember seeing the audit when I looked at that one too.
Yeah, fiscal accounting and reporting, the DI one. The old policy stated the superintendent shall ultimately be responsible for properly, wait, nope, sorry. Nope, that was the wrong one, sorry.
a good example.
Audits,
Oh, okay,
DIE.
go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, sorry, it's the audits, DIE. Maine law requires that the district books be audited annually based on July 1 to June 30 fiscal year, and that copy of such audit will be filed with the commissioner by December 1 of each year. So the audit needs to be filed with the commissioner by December 1. I would think that if that needs to be done, then it should have stayed in the policy.
But it doesn't need to be done.
It doesn't need to be done, so
Right.
that changed.
Right. So now what Lucy has to do is a fiscal reporting. She does quarterly fiscal reporting.
Okay,
And so that's how they do it now.
okay.
So we don't send an audit on file with the commissioner. We keep it on file in case they ask.
Okay, So it's no longer required, which at one point it must have been.
And I think we still do
It's
it.
still, the auditors actually
The
file
auditors
with
do
the
it.
state. We don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just things like that. It's just the play on words that I'm like, well, I don't understand.
What's
that.
important, like the last one we covered, what's important is that if you get a policy that's, that's coming to you, that's a boilerplate, right? So this should fit every district and you don't like the way it fits your district. That's
Okay.
where you should personalize it to make
Yeah.
sure that it works for this. So I think that was the case with this one, where the board looked at it and say, wait a minute, this says staff can never talk to us.
Yep.
We want staff to talk to us,
Yeah.
that's
See,
important.
and I think that that's where I'm coming in, where I'm not, I'd like to know, like, why we as a district are changing it. I don't know.
Well, because it doesn't exist without us making it exist.
Yeah,
So if we're not here, there is no policy. So we
Yeah.
create the policy and have to amend it. And what we did is we get these recommendations,
mhm,
but the recommendations come through Maine School Management Association,
Mhm.
which is in the same office as the Maine School Board Association, but they're not the same thing.
right,
And the buck stops with you.
yeah,
I mean, I was the one who opposed this policy, BHC, this was his first read. And I probably still won't approve it in its current form. Because it was based on, what happened was there was a statute that was passed. And the statute said that school board shall regularly communicate with school employees in the school board's administrative unit
uh-huh,
and members of the public who reside within the boundaries of the school administrative unit.
uh-huh, okay,
That's a really clear objective to me.
yeah,
It says you shall communicate with employees.
Right.
And then we get the first version of this is much better than the first version. The first version said you shall not talk,
yeah,
don't talk to anybody. And they were making reference to a law that said, please talk to everybody.
right,
So,
It's worth noting though, Toby, that the last sentence of this proposed policy is, individual board members should refrain from initiating communications or conversations with staff members on their own. That's in the face of state law that says you shall communicate.
yeah,
Try to square that up.
right.
and this is
Well,
coming
see, and
from,
that's, so that's,
If the alarm bells are going
my-
off, they should.
That's, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's just what I'm saying, like, I'd like to know what specifically triggered us to change some of these things in the policy, and why. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's usually because we're getting guidance from Maine School
Yeah.
Management to say, you should adopt this policy, you should change that policy.
Right, but where does it become our policy committee's interest to critique it, to apply to our district, if that makes any sense?
It's based on my recommendation, I guess.
Based off, okay,
Yeah. Because I'm like you, I'm not a lawyer, so if my association is telling me that you should go update that, there's gotta be a reason why.
yes,
But it's your job to make sure that, it fits you. So this policy, as Toby said, it doesn't fit what the vision is for this board with communicating with the public.
and we have a ton of things, like I have a bunch of questions on some of these, like there's one
well, I was
where,
gonna say, like, can you provide us with the recommendations, or is that just not
These-
process, or,
This is the process.
this is how the recommendations come. They go to the board, to the committee,
yeah.
and then the committee talks to Ben about it, and then the committee puts out
So then we're just gonna
recommendations.
entrust in putting it in the lawyer's hands, cause like, if I have no base of reference, if I have no point of reference, then what I'm reading, I can just be like, oh, okay, yep,
Usually
what you
it's not,
say.
usually it's not this many at once. Usually you'd see 3 or 4 come at you, right?
Yeah.
The reason you're seeing this many is because we're going through the policy, all the policies, so we're up to D section right now, which is why you saw all those D sections, and saying, do we really need all these or not?
Oh, yeah,
And so they've last been updated 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's good policy work to at least have them updated on a regular basis.
yeah. Well, and also answer the question, like, why was it once policy and now it's not? Like, that was the question I had, but then looking at when they were instituted, like back in 1977, well,
Right.
that was self-explanatory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But,
And you should, the policy committee members are on the board.
yeah,
Do not hesitate to ask, because they probably, if they had a discussion about it, they can give you some insight as to why they reached the decision they did.
mhm,
And ultimately, even though the policy committee comes forward and says, I think you should pass this policy,
right.
you don't have to.
Well,
We
that's
have a
where-
discussion
yeah.
in this meeting.
Okay.
Because the buck stops with this board.
Okay.
Policy committee is there to help make this move faster, so we
Mhm.
don't have to take up all of these one at
Right.
a time.
Yep,
But I welcome questions, I think it's a really good idea to ask why.
Okay.
Like,
I ask why all the time.
Yeah.
you might go review annual budget, and you might say, I like what it used to say. I don't like what they're recommending. And you might come next meeting and say, I like what it used to say, it made more sense to me. And then we'll open that up for discussion.
Okay.
And maybe saying the same thing. I'm just going by what the new lawyer language is.
Sure, okay.
You know.
Well, and that's why, like, instead of, if there was a point of reference, instead of waste, you know, because I don't want to say, well, I like what it used to say, but we changed it to this, so, and then you go, well, because this is the guidance we got, so that's just like
Yeah.
a whole bunch of jargon for no reason, you know what I mean?
It's a lot easier to not change a policy than to change it.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So,
Okay, well, that's, all right.
But, you know, in some of these, I don't know, not all of them, but some of them do have footnotes at the end that make reference to specific state statutes.
Yeah,
And you can look them up and cross-reference them and see. Sometimes we're stealing language right from a statute or making reference to it.
mhm.
I like to do that because that's what I like to do with my
Well,
free
right,
time.
well, it's, I mean, when you have 20 policies in front of you,
Yeah.
it's a lot of legwork for
It is.
somebody that doesn't have a law degree.
It
But
is.
you're interested in it, right? So you're gonna go and, okay, MRSA, and then just keep referencing, that's a
Yeah.
lot of homework.
It is a lot of work.
So,
Especially a big pile all at once.
that's
Yep.
what I'm saying, 20 of them. So, like, that's just why I was trying to make my job a little bit easier, but policy is pretty important.
It is.
So.
it is.
I have a question on one of the policies. I was just curious about the GBEBB, the staff contact with students.
Yep.
And how we shifted away from prohibited contact to unacceptable contact. When on the,
It's from the board.
it just seems like a funny change.
Yeah.
Because we still use prohibited when we talk about internet use, and certain things are prohibited, but we moved away from prohibited when it comes to interaction with students. It just seems like it's inconsistent. Can't believe it. Is this from the boilerplate as well?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
So it's not a good reason, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Okay, just curious.
No.
I think it'd be prohibited. But, all right. Items of business, old business.
Old business was the FKES student handbook approval. I did give you a link to that. There were quite a few things removed. In addition to the removal, they also removed that parent acknowledgement page. So that was removed. I did reach out to Mr. Neto before pushing this out, this information out to you guys, and at that time, he had zero feedback from parents at FKES that they asked to provide feedback. I don't know, Mr. Anderson, has that changed?
So,
So it was pushed out to students and nobody, or to parents and nobody had any comments?
I had one parent that contacted me just on bus limitations or limited buses. So if a parent calls to get a bus pass for a student, can the school say, no, sorry, we have no space type deal? Is there a limit per bus or?
Do you hear that, Mr.? She's referencing the language about limited space on buses and bus notes, and has it ever happened, or can it ever happen where we can turn away a bus note because there's no room on the bus?
It could happen, yes.
Has it ever happened?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think when I talked to Mr. Neto about it, he was, it's not an individual student usually. It's like if on a Friday afternoon, one kid is having a party and then they now need 10 kids on that bus, that's what causes problem. It's not
Okay.
generally a
Well, I
individual.
noticed that it wasn't allowed for like a school party, like it said it in the notes, like
Yep.
not allowed for home parties or stuff like that, but it just, there was a couple of parents that asked me on regards to limitations, just because what if they have 6 kids that are going to their house because it's family, or you know what I mean, because she's babysitting her kids or other kids, like what's the limitations? Has that ever stopped anyone before?
And I don't, Peter, Mr. Associate has never told me that that has happened, and I'm sure that would have come up. I do know that, so the bus that does go up St. John Road does have a theoretical bus list of, let's say, 80 kids. There's never 80 kids on that bus because you have students that transport themselves in high school, and you have families that opt not to use the bus, but they have to be on that list because they reside in that location. So every kid that lives up that way is on that list. So that bus probably has 55 kids. Could one day 80 kids need a bus ride? Yeah, it could happen, but likelihood of it happening is not.
No, thank you.
And in the event that does happen, in that example, we do have another bus driver who is always on standby, ready to go help with that trip.
Drive the one student back home.
Right.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the Bloodborne Elementary School Student Handbook.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I'm happy the acknowledgements is gone. I'm willing to accept it where it is with the acknowledgement gone. I don't think it's realistic to expect people to sign things, so I'm happy that's gone. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Make sure your 4-year-old signs as well.
Yeah, my 4-year-old, yeah. Along with they can't sign yet, but they'll do the technology one too. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Standing committees.
We still need to select our 2 representatives to the Valley Unified Board. We actually have a meeting a week from today. Information is going out later this week, and I need to know who to send that information to.
I think we had both expressed interest, and then it just so happened that we weren't here at one time and whatever.
Yeah, if there
so-
was somebody else, I would love to know that. I don't know if love is the right word. I'm interested in that.
Perfect, so let's put Shannon on it,
And
Is there
that's with
anybody else
Toby
and Toby.
and
Right?
Everyone okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Shannon.
Shannon will go, yeah.
And Toby. Okay. Katie, you didn't want to? Or did?
No,
Oh.
you have, desire, so. By all means.
Sarah, you're laughing, makes me nervous.
Looking at,
Sarah was like this.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a month.
looking at the date, I already can't make that meeting, so
Yeah.
it's kismet, you know?
All
There
right.
we go.
Policy Committee Representative. Is there any way those can be done virtually?
Yeah.
Because it'd be a lot easier. Like, I'd be happy to do it. I like doing policy, but I can't always get away from the house or
Yep.
my office.
We could do that virtually.
Hmm?
I'm okay with doing it if we can do it virtually.
Anybody want to argue for that? Katie, you
I
seem
know,
very.
it's.
I am
it's-
very passionate about policy, but I'm no Toby, so.
That's actually a really good thing.
Okay, so Toby it is. And yeah, and we'll send out virtual invites.
Okay, new business.
We do have a retirement notification. You should have a letter from Mr. Robert Bob Thibodeau. Before that, I need to make you all aware of a Valley Unified administrative retirement. We do have Giselle, who has announced her retirement to the Madawaska School Committee during their last meeting on September 18. And Giselle will be done, I think that's been backed up a little bit to
December 29.
December 29. And on behalf of Valley Unified, behalf of Madawaska School Department, we thank Giselle very, very much. I'm getting a little stressed, to be fair, but I know that she's only going to be a phone call away and on speed dial. I do want to talk also with the Valley Unified Board about kind of a transition plan, not only just for Giselle's position, but for anticipated retirements that we see coming. We always said we were going to, use attrition to kind of get a little bit smaller administratively, and that's still our goal, but we still also need to survive. So we'll discuss that with the Valley Unified Board, but thank you, Giselle, for everything. We also have a retirement announcement from CHS teacher Bob Thibodeau. Bob will be retiring after the school year, after 45 years in the district. He still looks the same today as he did 20 years ago when I was yelling at him on the sideline of the soccer field. We thank Bob so very, very much, and we wish him a long and healthy retirement. For that one, I will accept a motion from the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
We have no resignations, we have no transfers, we do have a new hire. You'll see the attached recommendation letter from Mr. Anderson and the hiring committee. They're recommending Louise Doobie for the position of Ed Tech 3, which is the classroom literacy support. Louise has been an Ed Tech in the district in the past, serving in the special ed department, and has been essentially substitute teaching in that very position that we're recommending for since Jordan and Richie resigned. Louise is here, and we welcome you back. We welcome you back, Louise. If any of you have a question for Louise, why she wants to come back to this wacky thing we call education, feel free. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to accept Louise.
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Welcome.
You're here to stay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We still have a current opening for a school psychologist.
Then is there an update on the music teacher?
Mr. Coletta sent me an update today. The process is going terribly slow compared to what we thought it would
Mhm.
be. And I believe today's update said, Mr. Coletta,
About a month.
another month. But they are asking us to start helping them look for housing. So they say we're at the stage now, they would take our recommendations for any housing we have in the area.
Oh,
So if you want to rent a room or something,
Airbnb.
let us know.
Joey.
But that's the status. We've had Mr. Doug Clapp
Mm.
substituting, luckily, since the beginning of the school year.
The teacher that's coming in is responsible for their housing ultimately, or the district takes care of their housing?
The hiring agent is responsible. They're asking for our help because they don't know the area,
Yeah.
but they're responsible for finding her housing,
not in Fort Fairfield.
not in Fort Fairfield.
Oh, man.
Item B is their winter coaching recommendation list. You should have a list of the winter coaches. New on the list this year would be your CHS Alpine Assistant, which is John Haley is being recommended. Your CHS Varsity Assistant for boys basketball, John Naranha. And CHS JV Boys Coach, Dom Rossignol. Your VRMS Boys Basketball, Megan Jandro, and VRMS Girls Basketball, Desiree Hafford. The rest are all returning coaches.
I'm entertaining a motion to approve the 2023-2024 winter coaching recommendations.
So moved. Yeah, sorry, recommendation to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all-
I think I just want to recognize that Ben's come back for the 40th year.
Yeah.
Not to, I mean, and 34th is pretty nice for Mr. Tibb too, but 40 years is a big deal. Just want to, I don't know, recognize that publicly. That's impressive.
It is impressive.
Yeah,
Mm.
I can't imagine not having him,
I know.
so.
And that's a hard sport. That's, I mean, that's just, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's
He's such a
amazing.
good sport about it too. He makes it seem like it's not, oh, just ski a little, you'll be fine.
Mhm.
No pressure. I like it.
And his spiel hasn't changed in 40 years about the mechanics, and
Mm.
he just flows right into it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so, all those in favor?
One of the adjustments that we made, item C, Friday dismissal. I guess I'm looking for your blessing more than actual board action. Friday, because of what happened in Lewiston, the entire soccer schedule got moved a week, delayed. In the wacky world of playoff soccer, there's a lot of negotiating back and forth between school districts and game time. The location is pretty easy up to the regional finals. The higher seed team gets to host. So our boys and our girls will be hosting this Friday. And we'd like to have a 3 o'clock game start, which complicates things logistically with fan parking, with students getting dismissed early, with ball runners getting dismissed early, and all of the things that are wild and wacky. A 2 o'clock game time has happened in the past. What that entails is that everybody at the Forkhead Elementary wants to start watching that game as well. So teachers walk the kids over here, which is fantastic, but then they have to get them back over there by the end of the day to catch their bus. Our ask this year is we'd like to continue with the 3 o'clock game time, but we'd like to dismiss our students just a little bit earlier on Friday. We're not asking for a whole lot. We're thinking about 15, 20 minutes earlier, so that we can get our elementary students on the buses headed home, or they're dismissed to the game to their parents, which the majority of them will happen. And then we can get our high school students to leave the parking lot so that fans can park and do all that and all the other logistics. So I guess we're just looking for your blessing to allow us to dismiss a little bit early on Friday.
Any strenuous
Consider yourself
objections?
blessed.
I do have a question. How does that work for the elementary school students? When you say dismissed there to the game here, they still have to follow the same dismissal, like we're not sending 4th graders, yeah, go see your parents at the
No,
field, right?
the parents have to dismiss them.
I figured, just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And Mr. Doucette, that'll take care of a lot of what we talked about, right? That's gonna help with that?
Yeah, there's, because to have those times any closer, we've got a lot of people going out, and a lot of people coming in, and then there's people from 2 different towns coming for 2 different games.
Yeah.
Even it poses problems even for UMFK for their residential parking. People just come and swarm in and take over this whole neck of the woods there, so we work with UMFK as well. So that morning, Mr. Pletta and I are going to have the staff and students park on the front lawn, and then we're gonna rope off the driveway or the parking lot in the back, and we'll open that up when time is right.
I heard you're
Some
gonna be,
people start camping out
Yeah, yeah.
either the night before or the day before.
I was gonna
Start
say,
parking their vehicles next to the field. And
does 15 or 20 minutes give you guys enough time to shuffle kids?
I think the
or should you
concerns
get a
we were
little bit
hearing about was
longer?
like, how do we get the booster club, to be setting up the snack
Mhm.
shack in time? How do we get the ball runners here? How do those teachers have enough time to get dismissed, go change into something warm, come to the game? I think that 15, 20 minutes gives us enough padding where we're able to do that. And what we would do is push out messaging as early as tomorrow, so that the families know that the bus is probably arriving home 15, 20 minutes earlier on Friday. Just be ready for it.
Yeah, does that have any impact on the people at home that are not going to the game?
I think with advance notice, I think.
Okay.
We do it with snow early releases all the time.
True,
on a,
okay.
a
Yeah.
last minute.
I was just
Almost did it
curious
today.
about that.
We almost did it today.
Why not?
Late start.
Jeez Louise.
Starting early.
So thank you for that. The next thing I have is next meeting date. Our next meeting date is actually 2 weeks from today, because this meeting got pushed back. I wanted to question you all on whether or not you want to stick with that or defer to the December meeting, which would be on December 11th. I just want to be sure that I'm doing whatever the board wishes.
When does December 11th fall on a Monday?
Yeah.
Well,
Is
I
there
guess-
anything pressing that would keep us from
Right.
pushing it to Monday?
I don't see anything, and what I could offer is if something were to come up, and then between now and then, we could call, a meeting to discuss that one thing. There's really nothing.
Other than the policy.
Yeah,
Well, at least
I'll-
I mean, you
have a
gave us a
whole-
lot of homework, so this
Right.
I was
gives
gonna
us
say, at least
Yeah.
we'll have a
6
whole 6 weeks to review it.
Right.
I say the December 11th.
Works for me as well.
Yeah, if there's an emergency, we'll call a special meeting. But hopefully there'll be no emergencies.
Yeah, because November does not look good for me.
That's all I have. I do have an item on the agenda for school tour. Just very informally, I'd just like you to walk these halls and see the fresh coat of paint that they put on during Harvest Break.
Smells good.
It looks beautiful, it looks amazing, and I think it's worth just walking on this level and taking a look at the hard work that went into it, really looks nice. So I just wanted to make sure you all saw it.
Thank you. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.